You are tuned into the Power Chord Hour, and as always, I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, here with you with another episode of the show. I'm stoked today to be talking to Joey of the band Near Beer, who just released their debut record. It is out now everywhere on Double Helix Records. We're going to talk new music, learn about Near Beer, a bunch of good stuff with Joey right here. Joey, man, how are you?
I am good. I'm a little tired. I'm a little hoarse. We just got done with a little four-show mini tour, and I'm apparently out of shape vocally, but whatever. It's punk rock.
Wow, so
Yeah.
so you're like hitting the ground running. So I was gonna say, I mean, as we're talking right now, this will be out a little later. We're like the record came out Friday, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's been out like 3 days.
Yeah, it's been on 3 days. I'm now in San Diego. We had a show in San Diego last night, and my parents live in San Diego, so I'm crashing at my parents' place for the night, and I'm gonna go
Nice.
back to LA.
Was there a definitive like record release show, or is it all just kind of a record release show?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the home. So I live in New York now, but my home base for the band has been LA, and so the LA show was on Saturday rather, and that felt like, oh, here's our record release show. This is the one, and it was really cool. It was like so many of our friends. I don't know. That one to me felt like the most definitive record release show. And people bought the record, so therefore it was a record release show. It was
Nice.
cool though.
Did you? I mean, I'm assuming you're playing a good chunk of the record. These shows, have you been able to play a good chunk of the record live so far?
Yeah, I feel like every show we kind of mix it up. There was one show where we were just like, yeah, we're gonna play the record front to end. One, two,
Nice.
three, four. Here we go. And then the last couple, or the one in LA was cool because we had everybody who played on the record. We had them come up and like perform a song or two with us.
Nice.
At some point, we had like 9 people on stage and like 5 guitars, and it was ridiculous, but it was as a person who loves giant guitar sounds, I was like, this is the best. Everybody's playing the same exact riff, and it's so ridiculous and indulgent, but that also felt very much like that was a feature of the LA show. But that one we couldn't do the record front to end because we wanted to coordinate like, oh, this dude plays on these two songs and Adeline sings on these two songs. So it was a lot of sorting out the set list to, accommodate that, but super fun.
That's pretty rad. I mean, because also, right, you're the only guitarist in the band. You guys are a trio, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's complicated because
Oh,
uh, in all of the like live photos and stuff, the three main dudes in the band are like the three core guys, and we have other guitar players that have like kind of come in and come out, and so we're kind of in between like who our permanent guitar player is, and the three, me, Jeremy, and Brent are the three like main dudes that were like on all of the record, and we lost a guitar player while we were like recording it, and so
oh,
it's just this like weird like yeah, like normally you'll never see us play live as a trio. You'll always see us have at least 4 people. And actually on this tour we have 5 people. We have somebody who's playing 12 string the whole time.
oh,
uh
wow.
but yeah, on the all of our press photos and stuff, it's like, oh cool, you guys are like a trio like Jawbreaker or something, and it's like, yeah, but there's always going to be an extra guitar player. I
You're in the,
promise.
it sounds like you're in transitional period. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, if in the middle of recording you lose a guitarist, you're
I
doing what you.
mean, it was interesting because at the recording, it was like a dude who was my friend. He was uh, a guy who produced like my old band's records, but he's like a dad, and he's very like, yeah, dudes, I love the band, but like I can't like go on the road with you guys. So I like, use me when you need me and don't use me when you don't need me. And so I was like, all right, but I really like the way you play these guitar solos. So just can you do it on the record? Uh, and yeah, we just haven't found the person that is like, oh, here's our guy. Here's this guy's going to be the next, full time guitar player. Um,
It's
we're in
early.
that process. Yeah, yeah. I guess this is like, hey, if you're in Los Angeles or New York and you want to play guitar in a rock band, give me a call. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, after you listen to this record, everyone's gonna want to play. Everyone's gonna want to play in your band, I think.
Do you
How
like do you like big dumb riffs and and rat pedals? Cool. Talk to me. Yeah.
hell
No.
yeah. There's some good solos on that record though too. I gotta say to his credit. And there's one sticking out in my head, and I wish I've listened to the record twice. I can't for the life of me. I'm not going to be able to remember the name, but there's one that sticks out. I go, wow, that's a good solo. But
Awesome.
I wish I remembered more. But
Awesome. It was either him, me, or we have another guitar player that popped into. So it all's a lot of guitar wankery on that, and some is drunker than others. But it was all
there
fun.
all I can say, I mean, I know before we started, me and you were having our little replacements talk, and it reminded me of like a solo, not a replacement solo, but a Paul Westerberg, like 90s era. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's what I hear. And I'm like, shit, I think that person likes Paul Westerberg's solo catalog.
Okay, it might be on the
Middle of
whiskey
the record,
song.
like middle of
Yeah,
the record, I know. That's about all.
yeah.
I know we're playing like identify the song by little details, but good stuff on there. There is the riffs on this thing are good. They're
Sweet,
excellent. But
sweet. Yeah. I
I mean,
appreciate it.
I'm sure everyone's asking you this, but I mean, how's it feel now to get the because I mean, we're not just talking about a new record, we're talking about your debut record, you know, I mean, a pretty important one for a band. How's it feel to finally have this out in the world?
Oh man, it feels so good. We've been sitting on it for so long. Like, honestly, we started recording it 3 years ago, um, and we just like we had day jobs and we have other life things. And the guy who was recording it also has like a studio, and he was giving us like a very like bro deal on it, which also meant that if anybody else booked the studio, we got kind of like bumped. And so it was like a thing that was like, all right, well, whenever you guys can come in and do it, do it. And then so it was like very, very leisurely uh doing this record. Um and then we've had it for a while and like sat on it because we were like, well, we're a live band and we don't want to put out a record unless we can play live. But the pandemic was like kind of messing that up.
Yeah.
Um, and so now that we can finally like get back out there and play and put this thing out, it just feels so good. And it's just like a long time coming.
That is, I mean, how long I mean, you've been working on it that long. How long has Near Beer been a band? I mean, when did you guys form?
I think I had to look this up because I was asked this a question and I was like, oh, I don't know, like 2015. But then I realized no, it was way later. It was 2019 was like our first show. I believe 2019 was our first show. Yeah, 2019 was our first show. Um, and so we only like really played for like a year before the pandemic kind of messed that up.
You're in a I mean, I feel like lately I've interviewed a good chunk of bands where like, yeah, they formed like 2018, 2019, and like it's weird because they've been around for like 4 years or so, but it's like, you know, I mean, there's those few years in between where it's like, including if you are a touring band, you're trying to do a lot, it's like, you know, those are like those quiet years, you know, it's kind of interesting because it's like, yeah, you're still a new band, but you feel so much newer. Like 4 years isn't super long, but still, in the grand scheme of things, when I'm talking about a debut record, it's almost like, damn, okay, you've been around for a minute, you know?
Yeah. It is like a confusing like cognitive dissonance between like, oh yeah, we're totally a new band, but we've been in this weird incubation period, like forced incubation period because of the pandemic. um, which I don't know. I guess it like worked out okay for us because it let us kind of tinker and mess around in the studio and try stuff and like not be precious about stuff. And also, I have to say, like, pandemics, dark times, and getting to like, I think we just decided like once or twice a week we would just get together as a band and just drink a 12 pack of beers and have band practice and like that was that was the most joyful point of the lockdown period to just jam with your buddies. And so yeah, I think that there's something about the specific era of like music creation that like really made me appreciate what music as a therapeutic thing.
It's nice to have something like that because I mean, then the other thing too is when you come out of it on the other end, you have a record. Like, you know, I mean, if you have to go through something as awful as a pandemic, at least like, you know, you can go, I have a good record out of it. You know, like
For
I don't know.
sure.
It's the one silver lining, you know what I mean, of all the dark things. Like you do come out with you know, you have a nice piece of art at the, you know, at the end of it, you know.
Totally. Yeah. And we're stoked to have that. So cool.
But has the band, you know, since forming, were you kind of just writing songs from the get-go? I mean, was it basically just hit the ground running with this?
That's interesting. So I was thinking about this because there's 10 songs on the record, and I would say about almost half of them. So I was in an old band or another band like for years, and then like about now about 10 years ago we officially broke up. But there's a batch of songs that like we never like recorded with the old band that like now I have Frankensteined into Near Beer songs. And there was a band that I was in the middle between that band and Near Beer that also several of these songs are Frankenstein. So a lot of the songs, like the DNA of them, dates back 10 years, 7 years, 5 years, like.
Oh wow.
Um, and so yeah, it's weird because it's not like, oh, Near Beer started and like where I'm writing songs for Near Beer. It was like these are songs that all had bits and pieces in other bands. And I mean, I also made peace with the fact that like I only know how to write like three kinds of songs that are like this kind of like a punk song, this kind of like a replacements ripoff song, whatever it is. Like I you know I'm not like a school well versed songwriter, but I write what I write, whatever.
You know your
Uh,
strengths probably. You know what you can
yeah,
write.
yeah, and it's the same stuff that I was writing in my old bands and stuff. So it's easy to translate anything that I had written from previous bands into Near Beer. But it's just filtered through different musicians, and they each bring something different. Our drummer's great, and he hears things that I don't hear, and he like makes everything better. Our bass player makes it all better. It's cool to have songs that have been around in my brain for 10 years, sometimes even longer. And now all of a sudden, like, oh, cool. They're out, they're filtered through these new musicians, and they have a whole different life.
That's cool. Had you like throughout those years, like I mean, those old ideas and stuff like that, had you been kind of kicking around thinking about them the whole time, or were they things you kind of rediscovered later on, going like, oh my God, like I forgot I wrote this kind of deal?
That's a great question. It was interesting because after the old band was called the Henry Clay People, and we toured and we kind of had like a run, and I got to the end of it and I was like, you know what? I'm done with being in a band. I'm gonna go back to grad school. And so I literally like went back to school and I like hung up my guitar and I did not bring a guitar with me to grad school. And then a couple months into it, and I moved across the country. Like I moved from LA to the other side of the country and just was like, I'm done with music. I need to just like step away from music. Maybe 2 3 months into the grad school, I like called my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, or who's now my wife, and I was like, "Can you bring my guitar next time you come out here? I am desperately missing my guitar." And over the course of the next few months, I like made peace with like, oh man, I no matter what I'm doing, even if I'm in grad school or whatever I'm doing, I still need to keep music in my life. Um, and so from then on, it was just like there were always songs that I was like writing. Uh, and so yeah, there was some rediscovery of like little nuggets that I had from my old band. Uh, but we never really recorded any of those old songs. And so they're just honestly, it's mostly just riffs that I play when I'm like wandering around my apartment.
Oh, okay.
And I play the same riffs over and over, and I'm like, this has got to be a song, right? Um, and then eventually, I find some kind of structure to it, and it becomes a song. So it's interesting because, like, I know that we talked about like guitar riffs and stuff, but a lot of the songs start off as like a guitar thing that I have in my head that I need to be like, I need to turn this into a song.
That's always interesting to me. It's funny, like you said, like I mean, how like you went all of like 2 months or 3 months, without playing guitar, because it's always, I don't know, to me, like, and I always feel like I have a million questions for people who can just like put. I mean, obviously you picked it back up, but there's people you talk to where it's like, yeah, I put down the guitar like after the band, I didn't touch it again for like 12 years, and I'm just like, I don't know. For me personally, like in there nowhere, like no, you didn't touch it all. It's like some people just never get back to it. I mean, I guess, did you just think during that? Was there a point, I guess, in that 2 months or leading up, you really thought you wouldn't play at all, or were you just taking more of a break?
Um, I mean, I think in my heart of hearts, I knew it was just like a break. It's funny because I was in a band with my brother, and he kind of did the same thing and hung up the guitar, and he didn't go back to it really, or he didn't like miss it nearly as much. And he's kind of made peace with like, yeah, I don't know if I need it. And I think I always kind of knew like, who am I kidding? Of course I'm gonna pick up the guitar and play because I just can't not play the guitar. It's so much fun. It's like a almost like a tick that I just have to do. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, that always interests me. I'm just like, people are like, "You never even, like, picked it up, just played power chords?" Like, just not like, you didn't have to, like, keep being a virtuoso, but, like, you never had the feeling? Like, I don't know, that just blows my mind. But,
I wonder if it's like I wonder if they just like never had the joy from it to begin with. Like I kind of feel like if you had the joy when you did it to begin with, like you can't
yeah.
just walk away from that. Um,
I all I can say is I guess some of the people I've talked to at it, I mean, at some point made music their profession. Maybe it does truly burn you out to a point where you can never go back to it. But like, yeah, that always, like you're saying, like, I don't know, that primitive love, like you have to be doing the thing that you were doing then. You just get back to your, I don't know, your roots. I don't know. That stuff blows my mind. Obviously, though, you're in the same camp as me because you didn't last very long. You had to play music again. But yeah, that just always it blows my mind. But
I think there's something about having that emotional distance from the thing where you like did hang it up for a bit. Like nothing really makes you appreciate like what you love about the thing until you take a
tear
step
away
away
from
from
it.
it. And so, yeah, I mean, whatever. If it was 2 3 months of just not playing guitar, like I missed my guitar, and I learned to be like, no, I unapologetically love doing this, and I have to make peace with this. And I kind of feel the same thing about the band. Like at some point, it was a conscious decision. Like I haven't been in a band for a while. I am missing that in my life, and I need to make it happen. And so, once the band actually happened, and we, you know, assembled or put it together, it just felt like, oh, there's like an intentionality here that like uh, you absolutely need and appreciate, and it in a way that like I don't think I had previously appreciated until I like created some distance.
You needed it. You needed it, I
Yeah.
guess, in the grand scheme of things. You were like talking about how like, using some like older ideas and stuff with the new band and also you knowing how you write. Like you yourself just, you as a songwriter and everything. Do you feel like the band like the sound was pretty defined, like you knew what that sound should be when you started like right away? I mean, I know you said you're using like so, because you already had ideas, so you're not going in totally with nothing. I mean, did you kind of know from the get go how you wanted the band to sound, how you want it to be, and everything? Or did that kind of develop more as you guys were like, you were playing with the other guys and writing and all of that?
Yeah, I think I knew again, like my favorite bands and my favorite records are like it's always going to be the Replacements. It's always going to be Pavement. It's always going to be, Tom Petty and Teenage Fan Club. And like, it's like
The good shit.
Springsteen. Yeah. It's just like, I have like a Mount Rushmore, like holy grail rock and roll, canon in my head. Uh, and like anything that I write is just going to be like, how do I, how do I like get to like approximate like what my heroes do and do like kind of the crappy version of that. Uh, that feels like my version of trying to aspirationally reach for reach for that Mount Rushmore. Um, and so yeah, like I guess that's to say that like the songs are always going to be these kinds of songs, and like my favorite bands have not really changed that much in the last 20 years. I hope there's some growth there. I don't want to be like, I don't want to calcify here, but I do think that like, I keep going back to my favorites, and I might as well, if you're gonna uh, rip off songs, you might as well like pull from your favorites.
And rip off the best. If you're gonna rip off someone, I mean, Paul Westerberg writes a pretty damn good song. It's not bad,
Yeah,
like you know what I mean? Like there's worse people you could try to like rip from.
yeah, and I always consider it like a deep homage to like my favorite bands, and it's also what everything's filtered through your talent, your abilities, your inabilities. Like I can't hit notes that some of them can hit, and like I'm not a good guitar player like some of them, but like somewhere in the spaces in between is where I think some of the magic happens. And I think like I've said this before in other like interviews and stuff, but like my favorite bands ever are always the ones that you feel like their ambition and their aspiration exists beyond their like ability. So whether it's the Clash doing London Calling, I mean, like London Calling is a bananas record, and it's so ambitious and like splatter paint of like, yeah, I like this kind of song, and I like this kind of song, and I like this kind of idea, and they just like go for it all, and they don't play it particularly like perfectly at all, but it's the distance between their like passion and aspiration and then their chops or the lack of their chops that makes it so awesome. And I think the Replacements are the same. I think Pavement's the same. I think Guided by Voices, like all these my favorite bands are just like they're not virtuosos. They're like normal humans scratching at the like infinite of the perfect like rock moment. And I don't know. I feel like I could get really like romantic about this, but it's like
I like this. I get exactly what you're saying. I like exactly like what you're talking about. I think you're right too. Like a lot of these bands you're talking about, like I'm like Bob Stinson's probably my all-time favorite guitar player, but it's like a lot of times what he does makes zero sense. Like if you're looking at it from a technical standpoint or theory, or you're trying to like really like this, it makes not a lot of sense sometimes. Doesn't matter when he does it. It's that feel. It's just the feeling. It's what he's like. It's authentic. It's all him and it's real. And I mean, maybe that's the thing. Maybe he's trying to solo like someone who might be more traditionally a guitar virtuoso. That's how it comes out. The way Bob does it is how it comes out. But I rather it come out like Bob than the virtuoso guy. It comes out better at the end because you do have to make your own. You're right. Like you do kind of have to make your own path. You're kind of, even if you're going for one thing, it's coming out another way. Like even the bands we're talking about, like when the Replacements are writing your first record or the Clash are writing your first record or whatever, I'm sure there's those influences of the things they're going for, and then it comes out through their filter. Like now we look at it where we go, oh my God, these are classics. These are
yeah,
like, they're foundations for genres and stuff. Whereas then, I mean, they're just also 20 somethings kind of pulling like out of their ass influence and how this should sound, and it's like, now we look at it like, oh, that makes total sense. It would come out like that. Where it's like, I'm sure they weren't writing like Sorry Mon going, oh yeah, people are like, this is going to be revered in years and people are going to love this. I'm sure there was none of that when they were
yeah.
going for it. Like that
I
insider perspective. I don't think any of them look at it the way the outsiders later look at it. Like, I don't think Paul Westerberg sits there and thinks he himself is a god. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see himself just patting himself on the back all the time like other people would. You know what I mean? They don't look at it the way that we look at it.
Yeah, totally, and like, yeah, exactly what you said. It's the filtering of the song through the players, and then like the players, uh, like being so additive to the song. I get in this debate too with some some of my music friends where like I like give me a band any day over a solo songwriter. I mean, like I have my solo songwriters who I like love. Like I'll take Elliott Smith, and obviously I love any Elliott Smith song. Um, but a band to me is like so great because it is like multiple personalities, and each personality is a particular filter. And I mean, like watching the Beatles documentary, the Get Back one, like it's just such a great example. Like it is these four personalities together, disagreeing, having some resentment, having some problems, having some love for each other. But like that's what makes it's the combination of these factors that creates these filters that makes the music the Beatles. When you have a bunch of like session guys who are like their chops are so good and they come in and they're like studio guys and they went to music school and yada yada yada. Cool. I mean, whatever. I like proficient stuff too, but like I also feel like they're hired guns and their filter, it's like that's how the song is supposed to sound, as opposed to like I want to hear the version of the song where it's like it's not it sounds like this because we this is as best as we can do. Like not like, oh, the song is supposed to be like the platonic ideal if this song is this. Like I kind of don't care about the platonic ideal of the song. I want to hear about like the version that only these four idiots can do, you know.
You're bringing up like a great point there, because there's this, I think what happens too is there's amazing singer songwriter, like, they're just amazing, but that ego or whatever I think gets in their head where they can do this beyond the band. I was writing the songs, I'm the singer, whatever I go do next is going to be the same thing. Or you'll see a band where it's like you do lose those core members and the constant is only the singer, and maybe they will get like the hired guns. They'll just get live hired guns. It really isn't a band anymore. And it's like, as much as you go, well, I wrote the songs, I did this and that, why does it feel different when those core members are gone? You know what I mean? Like, why is it this thing where like you have to let that ego go? Because sure, you wrote those songs, but we keep talking about this filter. There was something that drummer did. There was something that bassist did. There was something your lead guitarist did that you yourself, when you were writing it, it wasn't there. I'm sorry. Like it wasn't, you know, like they're really, like you seem to get it. Like you have that. I think some singers, songwriters, maybe in bands don't get that dynamic where they go, no, I need these other people. Like, sure, maybe I wrote the chords and lyrics and stuff, but like they're going to do something to this. Like they're going to put that touch on it, because it's not all just the person. If it was, everyone could leave their band and be just as big solo. A lot of times it doesn't happen. A lot of times it implodes. And also that goes for everybody. There's a lot of people who leave bands and go, well, my name's going to mean everything after this. Your name means nothing when it's not connected to that band a lot of times. Like everyone together, that team effort like you're talking about, it's like, I will take the band over that singer-songwriter who was also probably in a prominent band before that and is the reason everyone's there.
Yeah. Totally. And like what I love is that some of the like magic is like, oh cool, so and so in whatever band was a shitty bass player, but like that's what makes it great. And or the drummer is like always speeding up or slowing down, but I don't care. That's part of what makes this like, there's something that is the charm of like humanity, or like human flaws that I think that like studio musicians are all about, you know, getting it right or whatever. I'm overgeneralizing here, but like, give me a flubbed bass line that is like played with passion by somebody, and I'll just take it any day. And just like the spirit of the music just feels, you know, more real and more accessible. And I guess it's like, you know, this is biased towards punk rock or like the kind of indie rock that I'm attracted to. But I think that the thing that as a kid growing up, like that I'm attracted to is just like, oh, cool, you're humans and I'm a human and I have a couple $100 for a guitar and I don't know how to, I'm teaching myself how to do this by like listening to like Green Day songs on the radio and trying to play along. But like, it's just humans trying to scratch at something that is bigger than them. And I think that like to me, that's all music really is. It's just like humans have invented this way to communicate, and it's slightly bigger than what they are able to. It's a form of expression that is bigger than they are, and so it's like a way to negotiate like the infinite, or I don't even know what to call it. But now I'm getting my head on my ass, but whatever.
I like what you're saying, and we can. I have one more thing on all of that you said, and we can get back to the record. But a few months ago, I was interviewing Jean Beauvoir, and he produced a few Ramones records. And like now, like he'll go out and do live stuff, and he'll compile like he does. He just kind of he'll play festivals and stuff, so he doesn't have like a permanent band, but he'll go out there and get like hired guns and stuff, and he'll do like he co-wrote some Ramones songs and stuff, and we'll play Ramones songs live. And he said, you can go get these hired guns. He's played with people from Berkeley and all these schools. They can play the craziest solos. They can play anything you show them. Have them try to play a Ramones song, just all downstroke power chord, or try to play the way he goes, you can't do it. He's like, I've never been able to. It will blow your mind. They'll play the craziest solos. They'll do this and that. To play like Johnny or Dee Dee, they can't do it. For the life of them. They for hours, they've practiced everything. They can never be Johnny Ramone or Dee Dee Ramone, or like, you can't be the Ramones. You can't just, there's that magic in there. You can't recreate it again. That's why you can't just have a hired gun who goes, oh, he's the same guy. Like, that's the same thing. No, it's really not. And that blew my mind with him. He's just like, again, it's like, I've played with world-renowned musicians who just can't play Blitzkrieg Bop. They just destroy it. It's just, that's the funniest thing to me, but like a testament to what we're talking about. You can't fake that part.
I love this so much. Our drummer went to Berkeley. and I love him. He's a great drummer, and he's good, and he gets like punk rock stuff. But like I am always of the same thing. It's like, dude, you can't teach punk rock. Like it is in your heart. It is in your gut. It is like a visceral thing. And I love I just love the idea of a bunch of like Steely Dan type like session guys like just trying to play. Yeah, Sheen is a punk rocker, and it's like, why does it sound like shit?
They can't do it for the life of them. Like they cannot for the life of them get it down. It's just, I don't know if it's the oversimplification, if it's just the, I look at it as almost the soul of the music. I go, those guys weren't proficient. They had to use something inside to write those songs. It wasn't because they were the greatest musicians. I mean, I know we've already talked about it. Like, it's not because they were the greatest musicians. It's because it was whatever was in them was very genuine, and you can tell the way they're playing. It's very genuine, and what came out is just an amazing chemistry. Really, maybe four people who couldn't write into, you know what I mean? Who really, maybe
Yeah,
couldn't play alone, but when you put them
and
together, it just works.
and it's singular. Like I mean, Blitzkrieg Bop looms large in the history of my music because it was in my 8th grade talent show.
No,
I was in a band with some buddies, and that was what we did. We played Blitzkrieg Bop at the 8th grade talent show, and it ruined my life because it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And whatever, like we were just you know dudes who just decided like, hey, we can play this one, and we played Blitzkrieg Bop. People are like, "Oh, cool, you guys are in a band," and like I've never like really not been in a band aside from the dark years the dark couple months where I
the
mentioned
dark
earlier.
months.
Um, and then there was a brief period of time while I was uh, between tours with my other band, like late to or 2009, 10, 11, that I would go back to LA and I would teach. Like it's kind of like a School of Rock. I was basically
Yeah.
Jack Black in School of Rock, and I would go and like form like it was through a company, but form bands at schools and like teach them a rock song, and then like they would perform it at the end for like their parents or whatever. And
Nice.
like Blitzkrieg Bop was like that was the one. And I remember there was this kid who like we are trying to figure out like, who's gonna play what instrument, who's gonna play drums, who's gonna play bass. And there's this kid who like I tried to put him on like a guitar, just couldn't do it. I tried to put him on like bass or like a little keyboard, or even gave him a tambourine, couldn't do it. And then I sat him down at a drum kit, and the dude just like immediately was just like, it was like the greatest thing in the world. Like this kid just like had this like punk Ramones like rhythm like built into him. And
Nice.
like watching these kids do Blitzkrieg Pop and like get into the Ramones, it was like the greatest thing in the world. So yeah, I have a very soft spot for all things Ramones.
I mean, I know we've talked replacement a million times, but yeah, Ramones aren't too far off that
Yeah,
list of best bands of all time. But
for
as
sure.
let's get back into your music. We'll talk a little more about it. And I was thinking about this because I know you're talking about earlier, like how you had a while to sit with the record. You had a few years to be working on it. Was there a lot of like, did you find yourself going back and toying around with that time? Did you find yourself going back to songs more, tweaking things, maybe even taking songs out, going back and forth, going, maybe the song should be on the record, maybe the song shouldn't be on the record? Because that seems like the one downside of having that much time to sit with a record. Did that?
Totally. All of the above. Like there are multiple track lists that like, oh yeah, this is it. This is the track list. Here it is. And then like, oh no, that's not the track list anymore. I mean, we went back and I would tweak lyrics. I would like live with like a lyric for like a bunch of mixes and be like, yeah, that I just can't. That's not the right sentiment. And I would go back and I would just, I had this like great relationship with the producer, where I would send him 2 in the morning text and be like, dude, can I come in tomorrow? Or like, can you squeeze me in some night or whatever so I can come fix that lyric? And he was like, yeah, sure. I get it. And so, yeah, it was a lot of tinkering. It was a lot of tweaking with what songs were on the record. We went back and we recorded some. Actually, that same producer moved studios like halfway through, and then like had us come in and like record just like a demo uh, to like test out his new studio space. And then
Nice.
like that song became like one of my favorite songs on the record, and it was just like the demo of like testing out the new studio space, and that was like a last minute addition to the record. Yeah, I mean, there's 10 songs on the record, and like we recorded 17. And so between the 17 songs that we recorded, there was a lot of moving stuff around.
I was
Uh,
gonna ask that if it was an album where like yeah, we used every song we recorded. If it was one of those ones like, yeah, we, like you do, like you said, 17 songs or however many, and it's like, yeah, then it like gets whittled down.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like short 10-song records. I mean, I say that, but then like I love like Give Me a Guided by Voices record that is like 23 songs and I'm down. But like I do for I think for it's almost like my ADD purposes, like I need to know like, all right, here's a symmetrical 10-song record, 5 A side, five on the B side of the record, and like flip it and it's 10 songs. Got it. Like I for my brain, that's like the right amount of songs for me to like handle for my band. My band disagreed, and we got in a lot of like headbutting about, well, it's okay if it's 11, or maybe we could do 13 songs, or And I was like, kind of hardline about it. Like, dudes, I really feel strongly. I want 10 songs, and like we can put out an EP of another one, or we can save something else to release as an exclusive B side or whatever kids do these days. um, but yeah, 10 song. A good 10-song record is
I gotta agree with you, and it's funny because I feel like this is how I know I'm maturing, because like I'm 29 now, and in my early 20s, I'd see like a 10-track album. I go, oh man, like why isn't it longer? Like what's that? Like I wasn't with it. I wasn't down. I'm like, I feel like they're shorting us. Like that's the bare minimum. I'm like 10 songs, bare minimum. Like this band's giving it, and then it's like you start realizing there's some really perfect 10-track albums where it's like, no, it's like sure, it gets to the point. A lot of times it cuts the fat out, because when you do 13 songs, there might be that one, maybe 12, maybe all 13 are good, but there's a good chance one or two, there's some stinkeroos on there you might fast forward through when you're listening to. Whereas 10 songs, yeah, it really, you almost can't mess around as much either, because you're giving yourself less room. You got to use the best songs. You can't just go, oh, we'll throw this song over here. It's like, no, we only have 10. We got 10 slots. There's no putting this song we're kind of like iffy on. Like I don't know, that works more. And I'm a more mature older man now. I now appreciate the 10-track album.
I think for me, yeah, it's something that has to do with memory. Like I think that as I get older, my memory gets crappier. But it's almost like, can you name what 10 songs are on Pinkerton or whatever? And I can go through and be like, yeah, I remember like virtually like every song, and I can tell you what the songs are in like that order. If you start adding more than 10, you start to lose it. It's almost like the telephone number thing. Like there's a reason that telephone numbers are 7 number or like 7 numbers long. Add an area code, whatever, 9. But like human brains can't remember much beyond like that. And so as you get above 10, numbers that are like 10, 11, 12, like you're going to start to forget stuff. And for songs, I just don't like the idea of like having that forgettable song on the record. Like
No,
make them all memorable, make them all count. And it's sort of just like have faith in like editing yourself. I think sometimes like songwriters get very precious about like not wanting to like edit stuff or edit themselves. But like I don't know, I think part of editing is like writing. Like what you omit from the record, it's tough to like have the audience judge what you omit because they don't know it. But like that is part of the creative process. Like what is not on the record that you are saving for a B-side,
yeah. Now it sounds like, because I mean, we seem to be pretty mutual on this. I mean, are you like sequencing is big for me. I always talk to people about that. Like I've been telling people who don't always, like I don't realize that, but like it's so big to go like, this is the end of side A, this is the start of side B, like all that stuff. Like is sequencing a big thing for you? That seems like something you care about, like I do, and it's not everybody does.
I'm huge on it. Like I obsess over it, and I will think about, all right, well, this is how side A ends, and then somebody's gonna have to stand up and flip the record, and so like, what is it like for them to stand up and flip the record, and then like when the record ends, yeah, it's just sort of like, I wanted to have like an emotional arc, I guess, or like a something that just feels uh, also just like kind of a balance between like emotions or things that the songs are trying to like convey. But yeah, I would say sequencing is one of my favorite things to nitpick and obsess over. And
Uh,
and I think that like 5 songs per side is like a great symmetrical like number to like really digest for, the purposes of a A-side, B-side record.
You can't drag on in that way. If you have a 13 song record and side A is like 5 tracks, side B is 8, again, there's more of
Yeah.
that room for it to drag on or go, I don't
Yeah.
hit the fast forward button a couple times. You know, you do that with
Yeah.
10.
I feel like and our only obligation is to like, in my opinion, is to not be boring. Like, I feel like most art, and I guess some art is, whatever people can actively want the art to like engage or be boring for people. I don't get that. My thing with like TV, movies, songs is just like, don't be boring. Um, and often that means like I want a leaner, tighter thing. And Tom Petty once said in the Tom Petty documentary, like, "Don't bore us, get to the chorus." And I just like, I'm
man,
like, yes, a wise man named Tom Petty.
it's true. There are albums where, including intros, there's songs where like I don't need a minute long, including if you're not like, I don't know, some bands just don't like musically. You don't have to be musically proficient, but it's like maybe you shouldn't do that song that's just an instrumental, or maybe you shouldn't do a 2 minute really long intro before there's any vocals. Like know your I don't know where you're at, or I don't want to say like know your place. As an artist, you should be able to like do some stuff, like jump around and do a little, but like still realize what you're known for and what people love about you. At least have the self-realization to know what you do well and know the reason why somebody bought your records in the first place, kind of deal, you know?
Totally, yeah. Like if you do want to have like a 4 minute drone on like before the beat drops or whatever, cool. But just like, yeah, it's be like unapologetically intentional about like, I'm doing that because I want to like, this is what I want to convey with it. Like I think kind of knowing what emotion or what kind of feeling your song wants to convey, like I think that's never a bad thing. And so yeah, I think that goes into the whatever. I hate that using the word craft, but like that sort of goes into the craft of songwriting is like knowing ultimately like what the emotional vibe of your song ends up being. Is it like a cathartic, angry, you know, thing? Is it a celebratory fist in the air kind of punk rock thing? I don't know. Um, but yeah, all it is just capturing like as close as you can that emotion that you intended to capture.
I think you do a good job of that in Near Beer. I think like listen from an outsider, like listening to the record, obviously, you know, you yourself wrote them. You're gonna look at them differently from everybody else in the world who ever like listens to it. But like it seems like you get what you do. What like listening to it, it's like, oh yeah, like these guys know their influences, they know what they like, they know what they do best, they know what comes out when they all play together, and you kind of play on those strong points. I mean, like it's a great record and nothing like over, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't lean too far into one category. It kind of does again, like it kind of goes in your influences and what you do well. And like we keep talking about the filter thing, then comes out through the Near Beer filter, you know, of all that stuff. But again, there's that self-realize it, which obviously you have. I mean, we're talking about all this stuff and you realize it yourself. But yeah, like that's what I think makes a good record, to realize that and go, we're do like this 10 song album. It's like it's fun, like we know we can do this, you know what you do as a guitar player, like you know the other dudes, I'm sure they all know what they do as musicians, and like you know work towards, don't work against what you do really well, work at, you know, go with that flow. If you do something really well, keep like working that thing, you know,
Totally.
don't do some you know crazy wild things. But you know, as we kind of like start closing out here, you know, for the you know, we're like at the halfway point of 2022. I mean, do you kind of know what's up with Near Beer for the rest of the year? You kind of in plans now of kind of figuring out what the band's doing the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a we want to play more shows and tour more. We're doing like fest, the
Right.
fest in Gainesville, which I'm stoked about. But yeah, I would say that like it's been tough. Like I recently moved to New York, and the band is in LA for the most
Oh,
part. And so when we do get together, it's like, all right, well, let's make the most of getting together. And so at first, we were just gonna do like a record release show, and then we were like, no, we need to like make a little mini tour out of it. But I think that we're going to keep touring as much as we possibly can. within the limits of $7 a gallon gas prices. But I don't know. We want to get the record out there, heard by people, and we also just feel very strongly that like we love the record as a thing, but we also like think that it's best experienced. Like see us live, get the vibe of us as like a fun live band, and then like enjoy the record for what it is as a document of a fun live band doing some other shit in the studio. Um, but yeah, I do want to keep on playing as many shows as possible within the confines of like the rest of our other live stuff, and we have other jobs and whatnot. But the band is still like the is it truly a joy to be in, and so we just want to do what we find the most joy doing.
You know what, that it obviously sounds like the live show is, like, an important thing and everything. I mean, is that something you think of too, like, when you're recording the record, or just near beer songs in general? Do you think of how they translate live? Because some bands do seem to act like you do seem these songs seem like they'd be fun live, and it seems I don't know if intentional is the word, but it seems like you kind of know that going in. It's like, "Oh, shit, this song's gonna be fun live. This is one you'd wanna hear live." Like, is that a thing you're thinking about before doing the show? Are you thinking about that all when you're writing and recording these?
Yeah, I think I've been plagued in the past by like I have for sure gotten like I've clammed up in the studio before with like my old bands where like I'll go record a song that like crushes live or just has like a great energy live, and then I'll like overthink it in the studio and be like, give the like 70% vocal performance as opposed to like the 120% vocal performance, just because I'm like, well, I'm in a studio and it's a more controlled thing. And I've definitely gotten in my own way in previous bands. And so part of the record for us was like, how do we just like uh keep the energy very high on the record and like make it so that like it is different than like you hear this record and it's not exactly how we're going to play it live, and there's more guitar tracks than we would have normally live, although our LA show is a notable exception when we had 9 guitar players on stage. But it is like sort of making peace with like let's just put all of the energy and intensity of the live performance onto this into a studio recording, without like getting too self-conscious in our heads, because and again, this is a overcompensation for like having done that in the past, and like realizing that people hear my old bands. There was a couple or one record in particular where they hear it and they're like, oh yeah, I love that song, I love it when you play it live, but like the recording didn't quite capture the live thing. And that's like, I think a lot of bands struggle with that. A lot of bands have an intensity live that is hard to like commit to tape or commit to a Pro Tools session. Um, but I think that the best that you can, try to capture some kind of that energy and put it onto like a set, recording session. That's kind of what our job is, right? um, so I don't know. I guess that's something that I was a lot more conscious about. Like, if this sounds tired or if this sounds like on our heels, then it's gonna be like music molasses, man. Like it needs to like not feel like on our heels. And I'm also like I'm an anxious guy. I'm like at the edge of my seat most of the time, and so the vibe of our band is never gonna be chill and on our heels. It's always gonna be like caffeinated and like
I like it. I like it. Again, it works. And in a second here, we'll play some songs off the debut record for people to hear. But where do we go now? We've been talking about the new record. Where do we find your self-titled debut? Where do we find the band online? Like all that good stuff. Where do we go? Keep in touch with Near Beer and grab the music and all that.
rad. I mean, I think I'm a fan of records, good old fashioned vinyl records, and so yeah, I think that there's like access to like the records on, and I think our website is nearbeerla.com. Hold on, let me check that as I like say that. I'm like, sent everybody to the wrong wrong thing. Nearbeerla.com. Yeah, that seems right. Yeah. Cool.
There.
Yeah, go there. And then I mean, I'm pretty active on like our Instagram. Like I'm admittedly not great on Twitter. But like our Instagram, like I'm pretty active on that. And if people have messaged me, I try to, like, as a fan of other bands, I've always tried to like be in contact and like respond to people who like actually reach out to us. Um, but yeah, it's mostly through the band's Instagram, which is near beer LA. Uh, just because there's like the actual near beer product, which I think is now defunct. We always have to attach LA to the end of it to just make it stand out, or else people are gonna go like to a defunct non-alcoholic beer, which is not our band, I promise you. So yeah, nearbeerla.com, nearbeerla Instagram. Those are the best ways to find us. If you want to buy our stuff, it's wherever, stream it, whatever. It's on all the streaming thingies. I'm a fan of Bandcamp. I also will say, like, Bandcamp's been good to us. So people that want to use Bandcamp,
I'll make sure when I put the link in the description, I always put Bandcamp if a band has it. So if it's on Bandcamp, I'll make sure that shit's in the description. If you're listening to the podcast, the radio show, don't go looking for a subscript or whatever the hell I just said. It's not there. For radio. But anyway, no matter what you're listening to, we'll play a few songs on the podcast, play a few songs on the radio show. We're going to start with the album opener. And again, this is off Near Beer's self-titled debut. This is Yelling at a Dog right here on the Power Chord Hour.